The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and thank you for calling MYM Insiders. How's everybody doing today? This is our first webinar of the new year, and we're going to spend a little bit of time over the next month or two kind of getting back to some fundamentals. You know, we're going to sprinkle some new things in along the way over the next 2 months, but we're going to do some getting back to fundamentals. Starting with today, our topic today is getting inside John Smith's head and really understanding what the heck it is we're trying to do when it comes to marketing. I think a lot of times we get confused, bogged down, and misdirected in marketing, trying to come up with things that are catchy or cute or funny or whatever it is we think marketing is, but the reality is marketing is really all about understanding the prospect, getting inside of his head, understanding how he thinks, what he thinks, why he thinks, and then saying things that are going to appeal and make a positive impact based on what we've said. It's simple, but at the same time it's hard to do. So that's why we come back and we review these topics. Now, if you've been with me as an MYM Insider for a long time, these concepts have been covered. They've probably become familiar to you, but at the same time, I know this, even if you have been with me for a long time, there's this issue of repetition and time and exposure. There's no way that today's topic is not going to be useful, helpful, and relevant to you. So I do thank you for being with me today, and we're going to just kind of rapid fire pound through a bunch of different concepts, and hopefully by the end of today what you'll take away from this is understanding how John Smith thinks and how some of these principles apply in dealing with, talking to, and getting John Smith to respond. Okay? It's ultimately about response. Can I get John Smith to pay attention to what I'm saying, to be interested in what I'm saying, to take action on what I'm saying? And unless you understand what's going on between those two ears, it's just not going to happen. So the easy quote that we put up here sometimes, if you want to know why John Smith buys what John Smith buys, you've got to see the world through John Smith's eyes. But we've got to go a lot further than just knowing what John Smith likes or dislikes, what wants or doesn't want. This is part of the reason that I have a fairly healthy, hearty disdain for marketing research, because it tends to focus on what does John Smith want, what does John Smith like, what does John Smith not like. And the reality is that stuff isn't that hard to really know. It just isn't that hard to know. If I'm working with a company that does air conditioning installation, and I went to John Smith and I said, would you rather have a 5-year warranty or a 10-year warranty? John Smith's going to say, all things being equal, I'd rather have a 10-year warranty. Now, if you said it's going to cost 5 times more money for that warranty, then that's not all things being equal. And so we get into an exercise of trying to prioritize values, which really is kind of difficult. So if I went to John Smith and I said, well, what's more important to you? Is it that I show up on time or that I do the job right? And it's kind of a no-win question, because both of those things, it's obvious to any living human that they want you there on time and they want you to do the job right. And if we try to start splitting hairs and start trying to figure out what is more important so that we can focus on that one thing more, I'd like to allow you as a marketer, as a business owner, as somebody who's hopefully intimately familiar with your customers and who they are and what they're like and what they think, I'd like to think that you can figure those things out either intuitively or by experience. And what I really want to talk about is how do we get through to John Smith? How do we say things? Because here's what we know, and this is kind of MYM 101 sort of base level stuff. There's different ways to say stuff where you can take the exact same concept and you can appeal in different ways, okay? So I'll give you an example. I've been recently listening to an audiobook. I don't really read that much anymore, but I do listen a lot. And if you don't have an audio subscription with Audible, you might want to look into that. But I was listening to an audiobook previously. I've read this book. It's called Made to Stick. Some of the MYM-type concepts that I've espoused over the years actually come from this book. The concept of the curse of knowledge comes from that book. It's a good book. It's not what I would call the most awesome book I've ever ever read, but it's pretty darn good. It's got some good concepts. You may want to pick it up. But they give an example in there about trying to help people understand concepts and what kinds of ideas are sticky and how does John Smith react. And they're talking about statistics. It's just by way of sort of a random example. We're not really into the presentation yet. But in listening to that book, it made an interesting couple of case studies. I'll give you one of them as an example. They were talking about a group that was trying to promote the what's the opposite of proliferation? They wanted to educate people as to the massive buildup of nuclear weapons in the 1980s. Okay, and they were trying to get people to become, sort of zealots for that cause. And so they looked at the statistics surrounding nuclear weapons, and they found out that there's 5,000 nuclear weapons at the time, and that these weapons had the combined firepower to destroy the Earth 27 times or 270 times, some number, and these statistics. And they thought, if you're trying to get people's awareness and understand and interest in this subject, one way to do it is with statistics. Now, let me be real clear with you here. I'm not trying to espouse statistics or anything else right now. I'm just giving you some examples to help you understand what I mean by seeing the world through John Smith's eyes. And they went through these different examples of statistics and proposing some various ways that they could try to make the statistics more interesting and more engaging. And the examples they gave were pretty interesting, talking about the power of the Hiroshima bomb versus the bombs that they had available in the 1980s and obviously still into today, and the quantity and the amount of destruction. And they came up with a fairly interesting way to approach that topic. So what they would do is they would get in front of somebody and they'd get a metal bucket out and they would take a BB and they would say, this BB represents a Hiroshima nuclear bomb, and they would drop it in this bucket, and it kind of clattered around in there for a little bit, and it was kind of an interesting little sight gag or whatever you want to call it, and people would go, oh, okay, interesting. And they would then describe the terror and destruction caused by that bomb. And you can probably see where this is going to end up going, right? So then they would say the bombs of today are, on average, 10 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. And then they would take 10 BBs and throw it into the bucket, and they would clatter around, and it would make, a little bit of an impact. Then they would talk about the number of bombs, and they would take this huge thing of BBs, and they would just dump it into this bucket, like 6,000 BBs. How many ever? One for every nuclear weapon. And it makes people go, wow. Okay, now, why am I telling you this story as we sort of wind this thing up and start going? Because really what we're talking about is John Smith. How does he think? How does he process information? Is it more interesting for John Smith to see a BB hit a bucket? Is it more engaging? Does it help paint the picture better than using statistics? And I am not, again, repeat, I am not having a webinar on throwing BBs in buckets. That's not the point. Now, that might be an interesting thing, and there might be some application for you in your business, but the reality is I just want to understand what's going on the inside of John Smith's brain, because the core problem that we see over and over and over again, I call it the platitude trap. We talk about platitudes, and it really comes down to this. People in marketing saying things that John Smith just doesn't care about, that just don't stick, that just don't make any impact, that go right over his consciousness. And then, like Claude Hopkins says, platitudes and generalities roll off the human understanding like water off a duck's back. They make no impression whatsoever. So we want to learn how to make an impression. And it's not just about speaking powerfully. It's about understanding how does John Smith react to things. Knowing what John Smith wants and likes is easy. It's usually common sense. Oftentimes, he doesn't really even know what he wants, especially regarding things he doesn't know about yet. And this is, of course, one of the webinars that we'll be doing in, I think, February or March or something is about Apple Computer and Steve Jobs. It's a fascinating study, but one of the things that I most admire about that company, among many things that are admirable, is they did no customer research at all, none. They didn't care what people thought. They determined what was cool, and they brought it out to the people. And the reason they did that is because people don't have any ability to understand what's next and what's going to be cool. If they see it, they'll like it. If they see it and they don't like it, well, then they learn that lesson. And they had lessons along the way where they developed stuff that people didn't like. And they were wrong, but more often than not, they were right. And the idea here is understanding how John Smith thinks. The real trick is to understand how John Smith receives information, how he processes, how he reacts to it, and so forth. You've got to literally be able to think like John Smith to be successful in marketing. You've got to put yourself in front of John Smith's face, and you've got to understand when John Smith opens his mailbox, what is he thinking when he sees that big stack of mail? When he hears you on the radio, how does he react to that? When you say something in a print ad, how is it received? When he sees you on TV, when he sees you at the grocery store, wherever you happen to be, when John Smith encounters you, how does he receive it? What is his reaction? When you say X, what is his thought? What is his objection that comes up? And this is what we've got to think through. One of the examples that came out of that Made to Sick book, I just kind of shook my head and I thought, this is so stupid. Not the book, but the story represents how stupid people are. It was talking about the consumer company, I think it's owned by General Foods or something, called Hamburger Helper. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. Hamburger Helper, well, you need a helping hand, right? And they're talking about how in the mid-2000s, I think it was 2004, the brand was really struggling. It was kind of going through a slump, and sales were down, and the CEO said, hey, you know what, we're going to really focus on this year and make this strong. And the funny thing is that they had all this data that they had compiled, and they gave it to this brand manager, this girl that started working there. She's brand new. She was out of college. Everyone thought she was stupid, but she ended up being the hero in the story because she said, well, I want to go out and I want to see the people that use this stuff. And she went out there, and they found people that were willing to let them come in and see their homes and watch them cooking dinner. And she said, wow, you know, it's a lot different when I see, you know, this woman who's got a 2-year-old toddler that she's holding on her hip while she's grilling the beef to make the Hamburger Helper, and I really understood what convenience means now. And I thought, really? You had to go see that to understand that? They found out that they had over 40 varieties of Hamburger Helper, and one of the biggest challenges was that kids don't like to eat strange things. And when you got 40 varieties, there's going to be some strange one in there, and they needed to cut their offering down to something like a half a dozen flavors that people liked. And I'm listening to the story going, who are these idiots that are running this company that don't just freaking know that? And the answer is, you know, it's called you just lose sight. And you need to focus and kind of get back to the basics. And that's what we're here to do today. So you've got to think like John Smith to be successful in marketing. Hopefully you don't have to go out and watch somebody stand there with a toddler on their hip to understand what convenience means and know that if there's 40 flavors that your kids only eat chicken nuggets and hamburgers and french fries, and they don't want to eat some weird flavor of Hamburger freaking Helper. They want lasagna flavor, they want stroganoff flavor, and they want, you know, Mexican rice flavor, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but it's just not that hard to figure out, okay? So let's talk about how to really get inside John Smith's head. And here's the concepts that we're going to cover, and I'll just throw these up on the screen because we're going to go through each of them in some detail as we go through this today. So I don't even want to read this list because we're going to go through it. Let's go through it, starting with thin slicing. This is a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. It's a pretty good book, and in reality, maybe it should have been a pamphlet because it's a very easy to understand concept. Here's what Malcolm Gladwell calls thin slicing. Okay, I'll read through this and then I'll give you some ideas of how it works. Okay. Our ability to gauge what is really important from a very narrow period of experience. In other words, spontaneous decisions are often as good as, or even better than, carefully planned and considered ones. And what Gladwell contends is an age of information overload. He finds that experts often make better decisions with snap judgments than they do with volumes of analysis. So this is called thin slicing. The title of the book is called Blink to sort of illustrate this concept of thin slicing, meaning I'm going to make a decision as a human being based on what I call extraordinarily little information to make, in many cases, extraordinarily important decisions. So as a marketer, you've got to look at that and say, well, if people thin slice, then how do I take advantage of that, or what can I do about that, or what can I do to leverage this concept, thin slicing? Well, first of all, let's understand how the reticular activator works. This is a core MYM concept. You probably all know this. Reticular activator is the attention center in the brain, the center for motivation. Okay, let's just skip to the bottom point on here. It's the part of your brain where the outside world and your inside thoughts and feelings meet and come together. Now, this is where this thin slicing is going to happen. We're going to take information into our brains, John Smith, and we're going to make very rapid decisions based on what we see and feel. So let's talk about first impressions. This is really what thin slicing is all about. It's about first impressions, understanding that people are going to see something, hear something, feel something, taste something, and they're going to have a very quick impression of it based on all of their cumulative experience in their life up to that moment, and they're going to make a judgment call on what they think about something based on this very narrow piece of information, what Gladwell calls thin slicing, what we can call in layman's terms making a decision based on just a teeny tiny bit of information. Now, the reason this works is because our cumulative experience in our life tends to steer us to conclusions that are right. So if you smell smoke in your home, there's probably a fire. It's probably danger. If you hear the phone ring, there's probably somebody that wants to talk to you. We know from experience, right? That's a stupid example, but it's true. And we know that if we go to a website that looks like it was put together by a freaking third grader, it's probably a piece of crap website that was put together by a piece of crap company. Or if we see a brochure that looks like it was printed out on foldable paper that you buy at Staples, that is probably not that impressive. And the person that put it together probably isn't all that impressive. And if a guy shows up on your door trying to sell you something, and he's got holes in his jeans, and he's wearing a T-shirt, and he talks with slang language and improper English, that you're probably not going to be impressed. Does that mean that that guy is absolutely unimpressive? No. But all of our cumulative experience up until that moment in time tells us that it's not that impressive. There's always exceptions, but our brain doesn't like to deal in exceptions. It likes to deal in rules, okay? So in your marketing, here's a few things that you need to know. First of all, bigger is going to be better. And if you understand this one concept, you can easily win in marketing in many arenas, okay? In the olden days, we would tell people, you need to have a big Yellow Pages ad. And you'd say, well, what do you mean you need to have a big Yellow Pages ad? Well, a full-page ad is going to be instantly deemed more credible, more trustworthy, more believable, more competent than guys that have small ones. Okay, well, Yellow Pages isn't really all that relevant anymore. So how do we become bigger? Well, one way that we can become bigger is with repetition. So if you're going to be on the radio, if you're on the radio, you've got a 60-second ad. It's the same as everyone else. It's not like your ad is going to be 7 minutes long, and it probably doesn't need to be 7 minutes long. But we can be on more frequently. Bigger is better. Ad size, length, duration, if you can control that. If you're in the newspaper, put a big ad. It's going to be more positively received. Now, this doesn't take into account what are we saying in the ad, and obviously that's important, but just by being bigger, here's what I want you to look at. I want you to consider this evaluation. All things being equal. If we took the exact same message and put it in a full-page ad versus a half-page ad, guess what? Full-page ad is more credible. Thin slicing, people look at it and say, must be better. You say, well, people aren't that dumb. They don't think that way. But the answer is, yes, they are that dumb, but it's actually not dumb. It's just called shortcutting, making decisions, so we don't have to spend time analyzing every little thing that comes our way. We'd get bogged down. We'd never get anything completed. People are going to be judging you by the way you look. Are you professional or not? Your website, the way you look, the colors that you use, are they haphazard? I was doing some research this morning. I'm going to pull this up on my screen, and I'm going to show it to you because I was just appalled. Let's see if I can find this bad boy. Okay. Where did that sucker go? Give me just a second. This is worth it. Alrighty, here we go. This is going to be on your screen here in just a minute. I was searching for HVAC companies in Philadelphia. And the reason I was doing that is because I've got a company I work with. They're in that industry. They're in Philadelphia. So I was looking at this. And I was appalled at some of the companies that came up. Let's look at this from a thin slicing standpoint, and let's try to figure out if there's a reason why your marketing isn't working. Now, I'm not saying this is you, but let's take a look. Okay? So here's HVACPhiladelphia.com. We click on this. And we've got this company that's got this website that looks like it was built in about 2002. That's 10 years ago now, folks. And it's got these little buttons, and it's got 24-hour service, and the guy has 4 trucks. Don't call a hack, call Mac. And we can go over here to About Us, and we can see a picture of the guy wearing his mouth ears inexplicably on this picture. And he looks okay. And there's nothing wrong with this, but you know what? There's nothing right with this. You just don't want to be the guy that's got this crappy-looking website. But you know what? This is actually pretty good compared to some of the others. Look at Joseph Giannone, whatever his name is. Okay. Does it look good to you, or does it look pretty average? Well, let's go look here at products. Products, contacts. Okay. Is there any information on here? Does it look barren? History. Some whole other thing comes up. What is this? There's nothing on this page. It's just the professionalism of these sites is pathetic. It's just not good. Let's see. There was a couple others that I pulled up. Maybe it was this one. Are you excited to do business with these guys? I'm not. Heating. To try our product brochure. Click here. Are you getting the point here? Now, here's the point of today's lesson, right? It's called John Smith. How does John Smith think? So here's what I got to think. If I'm John Smith and I'm looking at this crap, how do I react? And I look at this and I say, this is pathetic. Heating, photos. Okay, here's some photos. Okay, what is this a photo of? I have no idea. Air conditioning. Central air conditioners. Okay, there's a picture of air conditioner. Let's go back. There's one on here I want to show you if I can find it. Maybe it was A1 Technical Service Company. No, that wasn't it. I don't know what it was. It was one of these. I clicked every tab and it said information coming soon. There wasn't even information on it. Okay, get rid of that. Hopefully you get the point on this. This is called people are going to judge you by the way you look. They're going to judge you by the way you look. You say, well, that's not fair. And then you pull up the Bible story about God judges people on the inside and man looks on the outside. And what I take from that Bible story is real simple. God ain't the one that's trying to buy air conditioning service from you. It's a person. It's a man. And you need to look appealing, okay? So they're going to judge the way you look. They're going to draw a very quick decision based just on the way you look, your design, your colors, etc. Okay? They're going to be judging the way you project your attitude. Are you nice? Are you friendly? Are you fun? Are you serious? Are you confident? Now, it's not necessarily to say you have to be fun and you can't be serious, but I'm just asking you to consider, do you even know how people are perceiving you? Do you even know how people are perceiving you? We dealt with a company, a metal roofing company, about 3 or 4 years ago, and they had a girl who answered the phone, and they gave her a script. And the script was to say something like, we're having a great day at Cornet Roofing. How may I help you? Which was great, except she had no enthusiasm in her voice. She sounded absolutely non-friendly. She sounded like she was ticked off after reading this stupid script. And after she finished reading that stupid script, she was just kind of a sourpuss. And you say, okay, this is what people are getting when they call. Does it make a difference? And the answer is it does. People are going to be judging the way you make them feel. Now, this is getting into touchy-feely stuff. And you say, well, I don't really know if I can quantify how people feel. Well, here's what you need to do. You need to be able to put yourself in the shoes of John Smith. You need to look at your truck. You need to look at your phone, the way that it's answered. You need to look at your website. You need to look at your retail location if you have one. You need to look at your salesperson if you have them. You need to look at your brochures if you have them, or your yard signs, or your whatever it is that you have. And you need to get a feel for the way it makes people feel. The best way to do this is to just try. You say, well, that's crappy advice, Rich. Just try? How am I supposed to do just try? Well, just give yourself some credit that you can pull it off. Pull yourself out of your environment for a second and look at it and say, well, how am I coming across? We did an analysis on one of the projects that I work on where we get customers that buy leads. And I looked at the email that is sent out to those customers, and it makes perfect sense to us because we know what all these documents and forms and everything that's on that email are. But as you're a customer trying to figure it out, it's very random and hard to follow. And you say, well, how would they be so stupid they couldn't follow these forms and stuff? And the answer is because it's called the curse of knowledge. We understand things. We can't imagine what it's like to not have the knowledge that we have. And I'm challenging you to just get past that. Sometimes it's enough to just say, get past it and look at things in a way so that you can be in the same position as John Smith, okay? Now, people are going to like things that are similar to them, whether it's gender, age, race, etc. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. And they're also going to respond to things that are unusual or different. One of the main concepts that I want to impart to you today is the concept of unexpectedness, saying things in an unexpected way, saying things in a way that make people say, oh, okay, and pay attention. Let me give you an example of this. I'm going to pull some things up here. I brought this up on a TMAC a little while ago. Let me pull it up today for our call. Just give me a second here. And let's see what I come up with. These are some radio ads that I wrote. Got to find them. There we go. Okay. Okay, here's one for siding, okay? I don't want to look at that one. I want to look at this one down here. Okay, this is a radio commercial trying to recruit people for a business opportunity, which is Money Mailer. And I talked to this guy, and he said, we can't recruit people. We just can't. We've tried everything, and it doesn't work. And I said, well, let's go on the radio, and let's try to find people. I said, who do you appeal to? He says, well, we try to find salespeople, successful salespeople. We try to reach out to them. Well, let's look at the unexpected nature of this. Let's look at some of the words in this, and let's see if it actually makes people stop and pay attention and fills them up a little bit. Okay, let's face it, you're never going to get rich in your sales job. I'm talking to you, the guy driving around your cool little BMW, wearing the nice watch, who earns the incentive trip every year to warm places with sand. You're making pretty good money, you live in a nice house, and your boss swears that he loves you, but you're also the guy who practically lives in hotels. See, here's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to say things in a way that's a little more interesting, a little more unusual, a little more unexpected. If I throw a BB in a bucket, it's more unexpected than saying a Hiroshima bomb is destructive. People know that. We've got to get a little bit outside of the ordinary, okay? Go back to the presentation. Thin slicing, first impressions. I want you to think about this in terms of people are going to be judging you. If you launch into the usual kind of thing, you're dead meat, because people are going to thin slice it and say, oh, it's the usual thing, and they're going to tune out immediately, okay? Ramifications. You've got to have a strong identity. This is something I've been talking a lot about lately. If you're not familiar with what I mean by identity, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I want you to go back to some of the previous webinars that we've done. But you've got to have a strong identity. What is it that you're all about? What do you want people to know about your company? When you die and they write something on your tombstone, what is it going to be? Is it going to be very clear and precise and concise and powerful? You've got to have a strong identity. You've got to communicate with power. You better think long and hard about how you want to project yourself to the outside world. This is something that is very haphazard to most companies. They just put stuff up there because it's all they can think of. You just put crap on your website because it's all you could think of. Well, how do you want to project yourself to the outside world? Think long and hard about that. Look at a couple of examples. Okay, this comes from the remodeling industry. These are companies that just put crap out there because it sounded good. And you say, well, these are nice-looking ads. Woodcrafters Cabinetry, cabinets to your specifications. Now, I want you to thin slice this. I want you to be John Smith. I want you to look at the ad on the left for the cabinets, and I want you to thin slice it. What is your initial, immediate, knee-jerk reaction to this ad? The knee-jerk reaction is, oh, cabinets. Okay, they look fine. Look at the one on the right. We offer a full range of remodeling services, licensed home builder, certified professional home builder. I mean, this is all platitudinal crap. You know that. I don't need to sit here and point it out to you. But think about this in terms of thin slicing. What are people going to think? Versus a strong identity like this one. Now, when you see this, number one, it's unexpected because you don't see this kind of ad that often. As you work through it quickly to try to figure out what's going on, specializing in breathtaking kitchens since 1984. We hate ordinary. And I very quickly deliver a message that says this is a company that does things that are different, unusual. Oh, to be specific, BIM, bigger, yowza, energy, flair, unique, artistic, pizzazz, colorfully unusual style, moxie, etc. Okay? How about this one? If you thin slice this ad, you look at it, it says, ordinary, everyday, tame, tired, mundane, same old kitchens bore us to tears. Is there anything unusual, unexpected, different in this ad? The answer is, unless you're absolutely brain dead, of course. We specialize in pizzazz. Don't call us if you're looking for the usual. We hate ordinary. It positions an identity very, very strong. There's other things that this company probably does that they do well, but we want to make sure that we communicate this one thing very powerfully. Look at another example quickly. Kitchen remodeling. Are you anxious to get the job done? Or are you anxious to get the job done right? Finishing a kitchen remodel job is fast is seriously overrated. Now, here's what we call this. Thin slicing. What is John Smith going to think when he sees this? First of all, we got this perturbed guy. It's unexpected. It's unusual. It's different. It's not what they would normally see. Normally what they would see is smiling, happy people. I see a frowny face. I'm wondering who he is. I'm wondering what it is. Are you anxious to get the job done, or are you anxious to get the job done right? It engages the person. It forces them through the rest of the ad, and they finally realize as they read this ad, that's the owner of the company, and he's freaking PO'd because the job wasn't done right. Oh, maybe that's who I'd like to do business with instead of these jokers right here. What do these guys stand for? What's their identity? And the answer is we have no idea. None. All right, another one I can honestly care less if you have a list of 3 remodelers who are cheaper than me. I put together a sketch. Let's see if you're on here. Let me look at my attendee list. Let's see. I don't see Joe on here. We got a new MYM Insider member, Joe Sensula. Let me show you what I sent over to him the other day. Bear with me. This is good stuff. Sorry that, sometimes this stuff just goes a little off-road, but you know what? I want to tell you what's on my mind recently, show you some recent examples, and this was pretty interesting stuff. So I'm almost there. Just give me a second. I've got 2 screens on my computer here, and I'm working on the one you can't see right at this minute here. Okay. Now, I've talked about this guy in here before. I'm going to pull my web browser back up, and I'm going to show you his website. This is not his website. We were right here a minute ago. His website is Better View Windows Chicago. Let me see if this pulls up. Come on. No, I don't think that's what I'm looking for. Uh-oh, I'm going to get spammed here. Hang on, it's coming. I think this is it. No, that's not it. Where is that dumb thing? Indianapolis? Okay, I can't find it. It doesn't matter. He's got a website now. It's not that great. Here's what I want to show you. I want to show you this picture. Okay, I sketched out his homepage, which I have been known to do. Okay? Now, this guy, his whole business is built on the fact that they install windows better. They spend more money on window installation because their belief is if you don't install a window properly, you're screwing over the customer. If you just yank it out and put a new one in with 4 screws, which most companies do, that's not good. So I wrote this headline that says, the best windows on earth will fail if they're not installed properly. We're the only company in Chicago that pays our installers more to do the job right, no cutting corners. And then there's a video. Don't buy windows from anyone until you've educated yourself. Most companies cut corners in installation, so you think you're getting a good deal. We're not the fastest. We're not the cheapest. We're the company that takes the time and effort to install windows the right way. Okay? And then our pledge, it says full replacement, not rip and stick windows. No, by the way, I made that up. I think it sounds really cool. Rip and stick windows, no sales pressure, no long drawn-out sales presentations, etc. Okay? Now, when I sent this over to him, his first question back was, well, do you really think it's smart that we pay our installers more because won't people think that we're more expensive? And I thought, number one, you are more expensive, and number two, your whole foundation of your company is based on your belief that you have to pay an installer more money to do it right, to do an entire install, not just a rip and stick. So, yeah, let's position that. Thin slicing. If John Smith thin slices this website, and this is just a sketch, it'll get fleshed out, of course. The best windows on earth will fail if they're not installed properly. We're the only company in Chicago that pays our installers more to do the job right, no cutting corners. Do you immediately look at that and say, well, more expensive, not interested? Or do you look at it and say, well, what is he talking about? And then watch the stupid video. You see where I'm going with this? Identity. Okay, get rid of some of these windows. Back to our presentation. All right. Let's move to the next concept here. I'm going too slow. We're never going to get through all this. But that's okay. We've got, I've got all day. Maybe you don't. Trusted advisor. Marketing is inherently an activity of trust gathering. The more you act trustworthy, the more people will trust you. This isn't something you can fake. MYM always insists on honesty, integrity, forthrightness, and customer advocacy. The best position you can take is the position that goes around to the other side of the table in the sales meeting, figuratively or literally, put your arm around the prospect and says, I'm here to help you, to protect you, to make sure you get the best deal. I don't really care if you do business with me. I just want to make sure that whoever you do business with does you right, okay? So, trusted advisor. Inherently, marketing is an activity of trust gathering. So, consumer advocate. True consultative selling. Now, there's books out there called Consultative Selling, and they're kind of a little bit gimmicky, some of them, and they're kind of techniquey. Here's what true consultative selling is, in my opinion. Educate fairly on all sides of the argument. Recommend what's truly best. Now, if you don't happen to sell what's truly best, well, then expect to lose, okay? This is where I love MYM at its very finest, is because it insists that if you do marketing this way, which is the way that MYM espouses, that you have to have a fantastic product offering, service offering, or you're going to screw yourself over. So it eliminates people that don't offer good products and services, and it enforces the fact that you've got to have good products and services to be able to just be in business, okay? Negotiation principle number one, who has leverage? You know who has leverage in a negotiation? The person who seems and is perceived to care less about getting the deal than the other. Okay? Negotiation principle. This is one way you can become a trusted advisor, is to just not care. Now, that doesn't mean you act negligent and you act like you're flippant about the deal, but you don't act like you need the deal. Okay? Next, using soft language, especially when you're getting acquainted. Use words like maybe, might, potentially, thinking about. You start using closing words, hard closing words like you teach in sales training, and you start doing that right out of the gate, you're going to make people feel very uncomfortable. Think about the thin slicing. Guys start talking to you, and you start talking about, well, when you do this, and he's giving you sort of this command language and this assumptive sales type language, you're thinking, I don't even know who you are, Buster. Take a step off, back off. And it's just a negative feel. I'm not big on things that make people feel uncomfortable. I'm big on let's say things that help people understand. Marketing's number one job is facilitate the decision-making process, okay? Expose your weakness. Only a person with no motive would expose their soft belly. Here's where we're weak. Here's things that are not that great about us. Here's some areas where you might want to compare. It's like the window company that I just showed you a second ago. Remember right over here? We're the only company in Chicago that pays our installers more. You pay more? It costs more? Yeah, it costs more. Because if you don't pay more money, you get screwed. Oh, expose the weakness. I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not trying to come in at the very last second and say, oh, well, yeah, and it's going to cost you $200 more. I'm coming in right up front saying this is how things work in this world. Agree quickly. Agree quickly. Don't argue with your customers, okay? That's just common sense, but we see it all the time. Otherwise, you'll never have a chance to influence. This is a major problem with customer service reps, with sales reps. They want to be right. It doesn't matter. Sometimes people are going to argue with you just to see how you react. Now, they're not consciously doing that, but they want to see if you're going to give in. They want to see if you're going to be accommodating. Not because they want to take advantage of you, because they want to work with people they like. Are you accommodating in your relationship with your spouse? I sure hope you are. If you're not, you know what we call you? Divorced. Why would it be different with your customers? They're going to divorce you too if you're not going to accommodate. Okay, agree with them. Put stuff in writing. People are going to believe what they see, not what they hear. And then finally, this is the point that kind of encompasses all the other points. What convinces is conviction. And this is the Lyndon B. Johnson quote that I love so much. What convinces is conviction. Believe in the argument you're advancing. If you don't, you're as good as dead. The other person will sense that something isn't right, and no chain of reasoning, no matter how logical or elegant or brilliant, will win your case for you. What convinces is conviction. You've got to be convicted, not like a felon. You've got to be convicted of what you're selling. You've got to believe it full force, and people will believe you, okay? Trusted advisor. Now, remember, the topic here is seeing the world through John Smith's eyes. And what I'm trying to communicate to you with this is if you truly sell people based on consultative selling, helping people understand what the best choice is, positioning yourself as somebody who only offers the best choice, not acting like you're desperate for the sale, showing people where you're weak, agreeing with them quickly, putting things in writing, and having a conviction that what you're doing is right. See, people are going to feel that. This comes back to that weird word, that touchy-feely thing called how do people feel. And so often we create feelings that we're not even aware of, and we just have to become aware of them, okay? The next concept is confirmation bias. And you see here the movie poster for the movie Where the Wild Things Are. And I saw that movie, what does it say there, Fall 2009? I'm here to tell you, I'm 42 years old, and in all those 42 years, this has got to be the worst movie I ever saw. It's horrible, terrible. This is an embarrassing, horrible, terrible movie. But you know what? It was rated highly. People loved this movie. You know why? Because people loved this movie, this book, so much as a kid that they looked past how horrible it was, the movie I'm talking about, and they liked it because in their brains they had to like it. To be consistent with their existing beliefs, they had to like the movie. People could not stomach the thought of not liking the movie, even though, I'm telling you, it sucked, okay? People tend to find evidence to support their existing beliefs, ignore evidence that goes against them, or at least find excuses to rationalize them away. So from a marketing standpoint, what does this mean? This means that people have beliefs. Now, here's the interesting thing about beliefs as it relates to marketing. We have the ability to plant beliefs in people's minds, okay? You can influence their perceptions. It's like an attorney in a court case. The jury comes in not knowing any of the facts about the case. Unless it's something high profile, which it almost always is not, they don't have any idea what the case even is about until they sit down. And the attorney has the ability to then put those facts, that information, the perspectives, the viewpoints into those people's minds and brains to convince them. And if we can put ideas in people's minds, then they're going to believe them if we state them powerfully, if we state them with precision, if we've got a strong identity, and particularly where people are not that familiar, okay? Now, it says here there's some examples. Let me give you a couple of these examples. The first one is HIE. That's Holiday Inn Express, okay? And the example from some articles and things that I've written, Holiday Inn Express, I checked in there one time with my family. This is going back to 2005, about 7 years ago now. We checked in there after a long day on the road in our van, and on the counter there was a little sign that said, "Welcome to Holiday Inn Express, home of the Stay Smart Shower." And you think, okay, whatever, what is that? And there's a picture of this big, huge shower head. And then as you check into the room, on the counter next to the television in the main part of the room, it says, "Welcome to your room. Go check out the Stay Smart bathroom featuring the Stay Smart shower head bathroom Kohler. And you go, wow, that's a big shower head. Go into the bathroom. On the counter next to the sink says, welcome to the Stay Smart bathroom, featuring the Stay Smart shower head, oversized plush towels, bowed out shower curtain rod that gives you more space, and fancier, shampoos and lotions than you're normally going to expect. It had a more eloquent way of saying it, but that's what it said. Okay? Then you look at the shower, and hanging from the shower head is a little sign that says, here it is, the Stay Smart shower head. And there's 3 different gourmet settings: reinvigorating, revitalizing, something like that. And it's this big, huge shower head, and people look at that and go, wow, that's an awesome shower head. And they get in there and they take a shower, and it's so invigorating and so revitalizing because they told us that it would be reinvigorating and revitalizing, and they made the shower head large. Now, here's the point of this story. It's very simple. In the absence of them pointing out the attributes of that shower head, people would not notice that the shower head was anything other than a normal, everyday shower head that they wouldn't pay any attention to, because we've got so many things going on in our lives that we can't pay attention to everything. We can tell people what things to pay attention to, what to look for, what to watch out for, what they should expect. And when we do this, we're building confirmation bias in their heads. We're giving them a set of expectations that they should look for, and by doing so, we're endearing them to us. Confirmation bias is mammothly important in marketing. It allows us to be the one that sets the expectations, like the Holiday Inn Express, so that when we now go back and rate our shower experience, we rate it higher than if they had not been pointing those things out to us. You say, well, how's that possible? It's the exact same experience. Well, it's called confirmation bias. LSR, Lawn Smith Roofing. This is a company that does a really good job in roofing. This is a client of mine years and years ago. One of the top companies in the country, let alone in the area here in Dallas-Fort Worth. Did everything right, training, installation, fix problems when they have, and all those kinds of great things. And they were rated by their customers as a very good company. We came in there and put in place a code of ethics and competency. We told people ahead of time what to look for, what to expect for, what to watch out for, and how to evaluate the standards for a roofing company. We told them to look for different kinds of things, shortcuts that installers would use to make the roof cheaper but not last as long. We told them things that other companies did that were uncomfortable for consumers, like high-pressure sales. And we told them in writing that we guaranteed that we don't have high-pressure sales. We told them to look for a lien release waiver from their roofer that said that if the roofing company went out of business or left and didn't pay their bills to the supply house can't come put a lien on your house like they can if you don't have a lien release waiver letter. And all these things we told the customer. Things that, guess what, Lawn Smith Roofing did long before we ever showed up, but they never bothered to tell anybody. And as soon as we started telling people, their sales went up and their complaints went down. The company was doing nothing different other than using this principle of confirmation bias, educating people what to look for, what to watch out for. Here's what we want to do. Tell people what to look for, what to watch out for, set standards, and become the de facto standard bearer in an industry, whatever your industry is, okay? Let's go to the next principle, scarcity. People want things more when they believe that they are less available. This is things like limited time offers, limited quantity offers, limited capacity, backlog, exclusive products, lack of availability. Fewer choices are better. Go back to the hamburger helper, right? This is a little bit different, but, fewer choices are better. When things are scarce, it's easier to make a decision. People want them more. So think in terms of your business, things that you have available that you could make more desirable by making them scarce. If something is always available and something never runs out, then there's no urgency in people's mind, and they tend to want to not want them as much. Why? Well, I just get it later. It's no big deal. So we can create scarcity in our business with these things that are listed on the screen, whether it's a limited time offer, limited quantity offer, limited capacity. Now, ideally, instead of just telling people things and sort of manipulating things, you will actually have some sort of bona fide, legitimate scarcity. I tell my customers all the time, if you're going to tell people that we're limiting this offer to the first 10 people, actually limit it to the first 10 people. Don't just say that and then blow it off and be disingenuous. People can sniff out disingenuousness, if that's even a word, pretty darn easy, okay? Exclusive product. Again, the concept here is John Smith. How does he think? How does John Smith react to what you say? And if we have a lack of availability, John Smith is going to tend to want what you're selling more, okay? Authority. People want to know that you know. You should become the fountain from whence all knowledge flows in your industry, okay? A good example of this is a long-time company that I dealt with called Rodney Anderson. It's actually a guy's name. Rodney Anderson used to own CTX Mortgage. Now it's Rodney Anderson Lending. He's a mortgage company here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He does all the radio shows. When he gets on the radio to do commercials just during regular drive time and so forth, he talks about his authority in the mortgage industry. He sounds like an authority. He doesn't use platitudes talking about rates are going up. He talks in terms of authority. He's on a radio show. You can ask him any question you want, whether you're buying from him or not. Authority. Can you position yourself as authority? Put together maybe a report, consumer report, a Cliff Notes, an industry intelligence report. If you own a daycare center and you do a study on all the daycare centers in the vicinity, rating them on all the various hot buttons, the things that are important and relevant, whether it be diet, nutrition, facilities, education quality, student-teacher ratios, learning objectives, etc., and you publish the report, you now become an authority. And people say to me all the time, oh, well, it's got to be third party. You can't publish that yourself because people won't give it any credibility. Well, if you do it in a genuine kind of way and you report actual information, then it's going to be perceived as authority. You've got to make the information easy and obvious to access. People want to be told what to do. Now, let's just pause down here for just a second. People want to be told what to do. I can't emphasize this enough. People don't want to be given choices. People don't want to be fed a bunch of information and then left to figure out what to do. They want somebody to tell them what to do. How many times have you ever walked in to a retail store, maybe a computer store, an electronics store, and let's say it's Best Buy, and usually the people that work there are ding-dongs and they don't know anything, but let's say you happen to get hold of somebody good and you're looking at TVs, and you say, hey, I'm looking at these big TVs, I want to get this 70-inch TV, and the guy says, look, let me tell you the deal on these 70-inch TVs. This TV came out in March of 2010. At the time, it was $5,800. You can see right now, it's $5,800. It's LED pictures. What that means is it's going to be brighter, it's going to last longer, it's going to be more true than the plasmas. Don't go with the plasmas. You're going to definitely want the LED, but let me tell you something. The 80-inch just came out in October. It was initially priced at $5,800, just like the 70-inch was, but in the last 3 months, it's already come down to $4,500. If the trends hold true, you can get this 80-inch TV in about 3 to 4, maybe 5 months for probably in the high 2000s, and if you wait 8 months, you can get it for the low 2000s. Now, here's what you need to look at and evaluate. If you want to go ahead and get that TV for in the low 2000s now, you're going to need to get the 70-inch. If I were you, and if you could wait, I would come back and I would buy it the 80-inch in anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on how long you want to wait for it to go low. And you hear that and you go, this guy knows his crap. Now, let's go back and evaluate what allowed me to know my crap. Look at the things. Well, let me just ask you this. If you're listening and paying attention, type it into the console. There's a question and answer thing. I want you to evaluate that whole scenario of the salesperson, and I want you to tell me what things I did that established me as an authority. Type it in. Put you on the spot here for a minute. I don't have to be the guy giving all the answers. You give some of the answers for a change. Okay? Type it in. Anybody? Anyone? Let's see. Where's the questions? Here they are. Come on. Surely somebody knows. Okay. The truth. Yeah, the truth. But how did I establish myself as authority? What about what I said allowed the person to believe that it was the truth? Anyone? Bueller? Let me review it one more time. Okay, giving both sides, that's good. How about this? This television came out in April 2011, last year. It was $5,800. Now, as you can see, it's in the low 2000s. It's come down. The 80-inch TV was introduced in October. It was also $5,800, and it's now only $4,500. It's going down. The trends are, here's what's going to happen. What did I just do that made people say to themselves, wow, this guy must know? Okay, Craig says accurate, believable, detail. That's right, the details. It's in the specificity, right? The detail is in this. The authority comes from the specificity. I didn't just say, oh, well, this TV's better. I didn't just say, oh, it's going to get cheaper. I used the dates. I used the prices. I showed the trend. I didn't care if they bought right now. And my authority started to shine simply by knowing my stuff and using enough specificity. Here's that word. It keeps coming up all the time in MYM, specificity, okay? Command language. People want to be told what to do, particularly towards the end of the sales process. Now, you don't want to go around commanding people. We talked earlier, we said early on in the sales process, we want to use soft language, maybe, perhaps. If you decide in the event, soft language, as we get towards the end, we want to tell people in more concrete language. We want to say things like this. If I were you, here's what I would do. If this is important to you, then you need to do this. If you do this, that's the dumbest thing I can ever think of. Command language. Be specific. Have an opinion. Here's what people want, an opinion, okay? Talk about risk lowering. I think we're going to probably end up here. I might end up popping on and doing another segment of this later. In fact, we are at the end of the hour, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll come back, and we'll pick this up later. I don't know exactly when, but we're going to come back and do John Smith Part 2 because we're right now, let's see, how far are we through this? We're on low risk. Yeah, we're only halfway through this. So let's just come back to this and visit it later. That's enough to absorb for one day. Take some points out of this. Hopefully you found something useful, relevant, worthwhile. And we'll come back to some of these other concepts a little bit later. There's no way we're going to make them through all this. It'll take us another hour easy. So let's come back and revisit these a little bit later. I'll send an email out, let you know. Maybe we'll do a bonus session sometime this month. And we'll talk to you then. And if you've got any questions, feel free to email me. If you've got any comments, feel free to talk to me. And look forward to talking to you on our next webinar, which is going to be next Tuesday. We're going to have our Tuesday morning ad clinic. And then after that, our next call is going to be on the 19th. It's going to be our Innovation Hour call. But you know what? We might pop up and do the second half of this call sometime next week. So keep an eye on your email. We'll talk to you then. Thanks so much. Bye now.
The organizer